Drive. My name is Mike. It's been a while since we've last reconvened. Today is February 9th. I did promise I would do a recording today and talk about everything that's gone on in the last few weeks. And we're back. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of news, a lot of things that have happened over the last few weeks. Or I'm sorry, over the last week, really. Um, let's dive in. This week wasn't really a random one. Well, I guess it was and was not in a sense. Felt like everything kind of hit at once. You had the 6 second collapse at Fresno. You had the late game survival against Grand Canyon. You had a survey put out by the RJ and Mick Akers about tarping off the upper deck at the Thomas and Mack Center. The Mountain West finalized the new TV deal. And now those reports that came out late Saturday, Saturday night about North Dakota State joining the Mountain West is now official. Individually, those are all headlines, right? I mean, there's been a lot, but I mean, this has been a stress test for anybody covering UNLV, covering the Mountain West. And, these things are sometimes not always about one win or loss. One team joining, one new TV deal. It's about a university trying to find its place, a basketball program trying to find its structure, or maybe they're still searching for one. Is UNLV finally stabilizing out in a good place? Did the Grand Canyon win finally show us some true colors with what they had without Tyron Jones and without Howie Fleming? Let's all dive in deep to that. This is the Rebel Daily Drive, presented by Vegas Varsity, hosted by me, Mike Cooper, owner, writer, founder of the Scarlet Standard. If you're not following me, please follow me on all channels, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. You can find me on all of those on YouTube under Scarlet Standard Media. My website, the-Scarlet Standard, scarlet-standard.com, where all my notes, all my pre-games, all that stuff will live, and including the link to my Hey Reb article, which is my background. My Hey Reb petition, which is my background. And you can find us on all social medias at SS_media LV. But let's dive into it. Pastner talked a lot about figuring out what this team was and what the grit was after losing 3 straight going into Fresno. And, the Fresno collapse, that was something. They lost, ended up losing that game 98-96. They gave away a 5-point lead in the final 6 seconds of that game. 34 fouls were called. 5 players for UNLV fouled out. 19 turnovers by UNLV. No field goals in the final 3 minutes of that game, especially after Dre Gibbs Lawhorn fouled out with just over 2 minutes to go. Howie Fleming air-milled a inbounds pass with 1.6 seconds left, which set up the Jake Heidenbrenner game-winning baseline jump shot. People called it bad luck. People called for Pastner's job. People called this is a black cloud over this program. And you know what? I don't know if it's bad luck. I don't know if it was the structure that was off. I don't know. When you lose your foundation of 5 guys fouling out and you have a walk-on like Jalen Cunningham in the game. Granted, when we dive into this Grand Canyon talk, that he really gave UNLV some massive minutes. But we'll get to that. But, for 35 minutes against Fresno, UNLV controlled that game. They were up by as many as 13. They shot 55% from the field. Scoring 96 points should be able to beat anybody. Lawhorn was brilliant, as he has been over the last 4 or 5 games. And, on paper, they should have won that game. And, there are a lot of questions, a lot of circulation, a lot of how the hell did they lose that game? And, that begs the question, how the hell did UNLV lose that game? It's proving a lot about Pastner's roster construction in a sense, I think. Not having a backup point guard plan when Miles Shea got hurt. Even just a recruiting standpoint, I've talked about it on social media. I've written about it a little bit. The point guard problem has been a problem for years. UNLV's, other than really D-Don, who wasn't used that way, this has kind of been a recycled problem. And, they don't really have depth at point guard. Isaac Williamson is starting to prove that he needs to develop more, and he's not really a point guard. He's a very undersized scoring shoot two guard. At least that's where he stands right now. Development will always change that, obviously, and I hope he develops and stays at UNLV. But once Lawhorn fouled out, Hallie played probably his best game as a Rebel. But when Lawhorn fouled out and his creativity was off the floor, we didn't have a counter. When their stabilizer fouled out, basically, and they had stalled offense, turnovers. They were only getting points up from the free throw line. You had the really bad foul or whatever that was by Al Green, the elbow to the head that flipped kind of the game. He hits 2 free throws to put them up by 7. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, by 6. Excuse me. They come down. You hit a 3. I'm sorry, by 5. Come down, hit a 3. With that flagrant, they hit the 2 free throws as well. That ties the game at 96. The airmail by Fleming. It's kind of just an absolute collapse. And I don't know how they lost that game. I was actually in Wisconsin, for work, so I missed the media after. I was watching that game on TV. Obviously, I was not in Fresno covering that game, and I was sitting there at being 2 hours ahead at 1 a.m. looking at my TV, looking at my computer, watching the stats as the TV goes, just mind boggled of what just happened and what did I just watch. And people made the joke. I had one of the burners comment, love him. Love that burner account. He commented on my thing. I said, not again. And he goes, he's going to lose this game, aren't they? And then next thing you know, they had a collapse and lost this game. So it's kind of ironically funny, but not funny that kind of happened. Then 3 days later at the Thompson Mack, this team could have folded. Fleming ended up hurting his ankle at some point during that Fresno State game. Tyron Jones missed another game with his shoulder injury, and they could have folded. I was messaging Brennan, who covers GCU for Go Lopes Radio, and the Pit Press guys, and we were just talking about. I thought he was going to get their butt kicked against Grand Canyon, especially when they were out 2 starters. I was like, I would be surprised if this game's not 15 plus. Not having Fleming and what he brings to this team, that was a huge loss. I mean, not to mention lost Tyron Jones. Everyone knows what the impact that freshman has and what his impact is on both sides of the floor. But again, UNLV survives, and we saw something different this time. UNLV survived Grand Canyon 80-78. Grand Canyon came into that game 1 game out of the log jam up at the top of the Mountain West. UNLV was sitting at under 500 at 5-6 at this point. After the Fresno loss, they were sitting under 500 total on the season. Again, though, big lead. They led by as many as 16. Again, late game stress showed up. Again, the offense went dry. The building, Thompson Mack was kind of on edge. The Grand Canyon busting 500 kids. They brought the energy. They brought their fan base. The announced attendance was 60, a little bit over 6,000, but I don't think it was that big, to be honest with you. I think that's just the announced ticket sales for the game. And, Grand Canyon brought their student section, and it was loud. It felt like a road game inside Thompson Mack Center. The momentum, once Grand Canyon started to roll, you could feel the energy in the building just shift. And then, but this time UNLV made their free throws when it mattered. They were 18 for 19 from the game from the free throw line. They went 6 for 6 in the final 38 seconds of the game. Shots weren't pretty. Their passer structure and his depth, Jalen Cunningham, Al Green, Walter Brown gave them huge minutes off the bench. Dre did his thing again. He had 29. But yeah, I mean, they grew from that, what they learned from that Fresno game. Yes, they let another big lead slip, but they were able to hold on this time. It's also a reminder that this team is still very volatile. It's the question, I put out power rankings of where I would put tiers of what teams are. I put UNLV at number 6 ahead of Boise State because Boise State has some momentum right now, but UNLV beat them head to head. So I'm not going to put a team they beat head to head below them when their conference records are the same. But I put them in the tier of which team is going to show up. You have the Wyoming games. You have the collapse of the Fresno game where they look good for 35 minutes. You have the Grand Canyon as well. What team is going to show up? They've beaten Utah State. They've beaten Memphis, who actually is having a very disappointing season. But still, you go there and you throttle them at the FedEx Forum in Pastner's return. You beat Stanford on the road, who's probably an NCAA tournament team, has one of the best freshmen in the country. You beat Utah State by 10 after being down 14 at the Spectrum. You had San Diego State on the ropes. You blew it. You got blown out basically in 2 back-to-back games by New Mexico and Reno. You have the epic collapse. Which team? And then you also have these losses to Montana and Tennessee State. So it's, which team was going to show up? Which team was not going to show up? And you're kind of seeing how very volatile this team is. So I put them in that tier for that specific reason. And this team's going to have adversity. They've had adversity all season. Injuries, have derailed this season. Pastner going up and down, calling out fans, and realizing his roster construction has not been the best. What's the these guys are in this day and age of college basketball, or college sports in general. If a team like this, like UNLV is right now, sitting around 500, sitting in the middle of their conference, you have a coach in their first year. At this point, some of these guys, this is a job for them. And some of these guys are playing for their spot on this team next year. There's no guarantee just because you're on scholarship this year that UNLV is going to want you to return. And that's the volatility also of this transfer market. Which players are going to come back? Which players do we want to see back? Obviously everybody has their opinions. There's multiple pieces that you can build around with this team. Obviously I think Mason, he redshirted. I would assume he's coming back. You have to keep Miles Shea, who I don't know his value on the transfer market, but you got to think they keep Miles Shea, Laji as well. You got to think they keep Laji Dembele. That's 3 really good pieces to build around. You also think you got to retain Isaac Williamson. That's another piece that puts you at 4. Roster sizes are going up to 15. And, this year, like Pastner mentioned on an interview that I did with him back in July, they only budgeted for 13. Then the NCAA increased the roster sizes so it went to 15. So now they're budgeting for 15 new guys. So if you keep a core, realistically, can they keep Tyron Jones? That's going to be the big question. What donors are going to come out? If they get money like football is getting. I've been very advocate of football is now UNLV's baby. Football runs this school. And if the NIL is going towards football, what is the true NIL investment going to be for basketball? Where are they going to, are they going to have donor money for Pastner to play and to build and to have a good roster for this team to be competitive every single year inside the Mountain West, especially with some of these schools leaving, when the two real pedigree basketball programs that are left are Grand Canyon and New Mexico. So you have to be able to compete. There's no reason why this team can't make the NCAA tournament with what's coming up in the future. I've been an advocate for Pastner, and my stance is this. He can build the roster, and if he fails, he fails. But give him the resources to set for success. If he succeeds, that's great for everybody. If he fails, let him fail on his own. But give him the resources to do that. Let him have football money with rev share and all this to get good players so UNLV can be dominant like they were in getting back to the NCAA tournament. Yes, people are going to question this, why I said dominant. Making the NCAA tournament every single season, having an average of 12 to 14,000 fans consistently, filling the Thompson Mack and being top 20 in attendance like they were, that's what's going to happen. That's what needs to happen. And it kind of leads into, what I'm going to mention right now. They're in a crossroads. I wrote this article for Pitt Press. If you guys haven't read it, check out the UNM Pitt Press. It's my article. It came out January 31st. It's called UNLV, a program at a crossroads. It's a great read. It kind of talks about where the program is, without diving, where they need to go, what Pastner should do. Check it out. Check out Pitt Press as well. you want some great New Mexico coverage, make sure you check them out. But in that article, I'll talk about it a little bit. I mentioned this is an evaluation year for Pastner. No, I was one of the ones that I thought this roster gelled on paper. This is a team that can get to, I thought he would lead them to the NCAA tournament. I did. I had very high hopes for Pastner and the roster he built, and injuries derailed that. Things derailed that, and that's fine. That happens. But the realistic standpoint was this year was an evaluation year. Next year is the test to see if his program is stable. Can he build around a foundation of players in the NIL era? And the test of what his true roster building will be when he has to, one, re-recruit his own kids, and two, how he builds a foundation around the kids that he keeps. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about that for a second. Which players do I think they will keep? I've been advocate. I've said that they're going to probably be able to afford to keep 6 of them. And that those 6, I think they keep Jacob. He's been too big of a piece this year. Should he be a starter in the future? Probably not unless he develops more. He's one of those glue guys rotation energy guys off the bench that I think is vital to a team. I think they keep Emmanuel Stephan. I don't see a lot of power forwards calling for him, especially with the roller coaster kind of season he had. He needs to be able to put something together on film, somewhere between 10 points, 8 rebounds. Nothing. I'm not asking to say be 20 and 10, but he has to put better numbers, better film out there. I think he stays. I think Lodgy stays because he basically lost this season. And that's the same thing I feel with Miles Shea. Don't know what their value will be on the transfer portal market, but I think you keep those. So that puts you at 4 core guys right there. I think I would assume they keep Mason. That puts you at 5. I would assume. I don't know what the relationship is with Pastner and Nas Cunningham. I'm not going to speculate anything. He may be unhappy and want to go to a smaller school to try to get the play even more. But if you can, I think you keep him. That puts you at 6 right there. And then you have I mentioned Mason, Miles, the 2 other pieces that I think that they need to keep. You have to figure out a way to keep Tyron Jones, which I think his relationship with Deshaun Henry and what UNLV is building and how he was used this year, I think they'll be able to keep him. So that puts you at 7. And if they can keep Dre or not. So if they don't keep Dre, put you at about 8 guys. Isaac, Tyron, Emmanuel, Benarbi, Miles Shea, Lodgy Dembele, Nas. That puts you at 7. If you can keep DGL, that puts you at 8. Because they have 5 seniors. So if you can keep DGL, that puts you at 8. So now you're going to talk about what does Pastner need to build around these guys. You have a point guard if you can stay healthy, Miles Shea. But with his injury history of what he's shown, you have to bring in a probably a veteran backup point guard. That should be priority number 1. Number 2, Pastner seems to like guys that are like Kamani Hamilton, with length, ball handling, slashing ability with a decent jump shot. I think you probably get 2 or 3 of those. So that puts you at 11. He definitely needs to add shooters. So I would say probably 2 shooters, and then you got to go get 2 more bigs. You have to. You can't live with just Jacob playing out of position at the 5, and you can't live with just Stephan with how this league plays. So you need to go get 1, if not 2, game-ready bigs, not developmental projects like Emmanuel Stephan is. You need to go get 2 game-ready bigs that can come in and compete. But like you fans have said, UNLV has lost games in November and December so they can upset teams and take away from their tournament resume in January and February. Now we need to get rid of all of that. The big wins need to stay. They need to cut the bad losses early in the season. When I wrote that article, it's very telling of what this team is. Too many quad 3, too many quad 4 losses, but you had some really good wins. You eliminated yourself from the NCAA tournament very early in the season. Your rebounding is exactly dead even. Before they played Fresno, which they lost by 2, and before they played Grand Canyon, which they won by 2, so it's actually probably the same. Their points and what they allow was 77.9 and 77.9. Like, that's even, but they have not played close games. That's the thing. These last 2 games have been close, but nothing else before that. It's been very big wins, very bad losses. Very big wins, very bad losses. So it's, what can he evaluate towards the end of this season? What does he see? I think this is a major evaluation process around the program, what he states the program will be. If this, changes anything of his rebuild of what he's trying to do, what identity is he trying to feed off of to lead into next season? Can there be some positivity that leads into next season? Can guys get confidence leading into next year? And, it kind of leads in the portal reality. You're going to lose experience. You're going to lose 3 starters at least. You have to be able to build around Miles and Tyron, and hopefully DGL. You need a real wing shooter. You need a veteran defensive wing, defensive guard, and you need a stretch 4 and another big. I don't think you add talent that is, don't go after these former 5. I mean, you can go after former 5 starters. That's fine. But don't go after – look for guys who want to be here. Look for guys that is not for the headlines, that are pieces to build the puzzle. You have to make it look intentional. You have to make it look like, you have to make it look like recognizable basketball, in my opinion. And recognizable basketball resonates with the fan. Winning resonates with the fans. That's number 1. But recognizable basketball, we don't have to question what team is going to show up every night, fills buildings more than highs and lows roller coaster like this season has been. And that kind of brings us to the next topic of this TARP debate at Thomas and Mack. So the Las Vegas Review-Journal, my eye roll at them, reported that UNLV, which is Mick Akers, who he's been pretty good covering the A's stuff. He covers spots here and there about more of the sports tourism in this town. UNLV's Mick Akers reported that UNLV is considering tarping off the upper deck of the Thomas and Mack Center. Attendance right now on average is sitting around 5,000 in an 18,000 seat arena. The survey included moving the band back to the student section, the Rebels swapping benches, and relocating any premium seating that was inside the Thomas and Mack. All are reasonable topics, all are reasonable questions. I like having the band on one side, student section on the other. If UNLV is ever able to actually build a student section, which has not happened since COVID, it's been absolutely terrible. You have to realize that the last season UNLV averaged more than 5,500 fans was the season right after COVID. That was 2021. They averaged 85. It was like 8,600 fans that season. Since then, you had 4 years of Kruger and now 1 year of Josh Pastner, and they have not broken average of 5,500 fans since. That's about 5,500 is about, I can do rough math real quick on my phone while I'm talking. 5,500 divided by 18,000. It's about 30%. So you're less than a third filled, basically. So the tarping conversation is a hot topic right now. Don't know. I'm still, I do reporting. I'm still a season ticket holder for football and basketball. My wife uses my tickets with her friends and brings our daughter. We didn't get a survey about this. We weren't involved. I didn't answer any questions. So I didn't really, I don't know who necessarily they surveyed. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. But it brings the debate. You can't, I'm very opinionated on this. I think if you want to keep, you should keep it on tarps. I think you don't tarp your way to try to be relevant to make the arena look full. Winning games gets people back in the building. And everybody knows that. That's not really debate. That's not really a question. Winning games fills buildings, no matter what sport you are. So the way that I see it is no offense to UNLV athletics. Actually, they can take full offense. I don't care. The marketing for this program is absolutely terrible. The fan base connection between UNLV basketball and the athletic program is absolutely dog shit. Pardon my language, but it's absolutely terrible. You don't market your promos very well. You don't promote them very well. You overcharge for seats when the basically the team doesn't deserve it. If it's $100 to go watch an under 500 basketball team for my family of 4, not counting, yeah, they made parking free, cool, but what is that doing? Then you're trying to push these two for tickets without giving really people notice, or these family days, or things like that, and you're still not getting crowds. So you have to find the middle ground. Pastner is doing everything he can. Everybody knows that. He's being a great salesman. He's trying to sell tickets, trying to get NIL donations. Other than the winning side, there's a disconnect between the athletic program and where UNLV stands. And I don't know if there's, I've been an advocate. I don't know if there's people from the 1990s who just are so disconnected from the program that they don't want to come back. The new college students, why can't you get them to come? I know the product is bad, but why can't you make it more incentivizing for them to go? Football is winning, so they're not having this problem. So it's interesting to see how they can rebuild the fan base trust from that side. Pastner can only do so much. He can build a roster and put a good team on the floor, which is fine. But it's also how does he build the foundation to get the fan base trust back, other than winning games? And what does the athletic department have to do? That's the biggest question. And these are questions that need to be asked. I think, fans aren't disengaged because they don't care. I mean, it's pretty clear on social media. They get disengaged because they don't recognize what they watch. They get disengaged because they're upset of what the performance is. They get upset about ticket prices, parking, It's everything else that goes with it. If it was a good deal to go to games, fans would go, regardless of price. But, there's other things to do in this town, and everybody knows that. VGK, this is a very bandwagon town. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens and how they change that. And if they want to really focus on basketball. The focus has really been on football. They really need to turn this to basketball. Because to be honest, if they really want to go to a Power 4 like they've talked about and what's been put out there, they really want to go to something like the Big 12, you got to get the basketball program back. Football was the holdback before, and academics was the holdback before. Now you're a Research 1 school. You have a very big population. Football program plays in an NFL stadium with NFL-level facilities. They get 30-plus thousand fans a game. They've won 30 games over the last 3 years. They've been ranked in the CFP rankings. They made the Mountain West Championship 3 straight years. Whether you agreed with this year or not, they still made it, played it, and lost. So now you have to reinvest in basketball because now basketball is going to be the program that holds you back. And it's just men. It's just men's. Women's basketball doing their part, winning games, winning conference championships, making the NCAA tournament. They're doing everything. Lindy's doing a great job with everything they can. Pastner's on steering this ship, guiding this ship. Now you got to show him that the school has to show him that they support him too. So that's where I'm going to leave that. Let's talk about the two major Mountain West news. North Dakota State joining the Mountain West. FCS Power North Dakota State officially joins the Mountain West. This is a great addition for Mountain West football. I've been very advocate on Twitter. I would put them at number 4, right behind Hawaii. I think they're better right now than the bottom tier of the Mountain West. And I'm sorry to disrespect other than Reno fans. I don't care what your opinion is. Reno has been a bad program the last couple of years. UTEP has not been very good in football the last couple of years, unfortunately. NIU had a very down year last year. Wyoming had a down year last year. So and Air Force has not been able to keep up since the NIL. So it's other than the three at the top, it's a very top heavy league. So realistically sliding North Dakota State in at number 4 is where I put them in my early power ranking, way too early power ranking. I put UNLV at number 1, Hawaii at number 2, New Mexico at number 3, North Dakota State at number 4. There are some questions, sorry, I'll get into more detail. Mountain West is getting $12 million from North Dakota State. North Dakota State's paying $5 million to go to to FBS. It's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust. Obviously, money was there to get them there. That they've been so dominant over the last 15 years, really. They won 10 of the last 15 FCS national championships. They've won 100. They went 198 and 22, which is a 90% win percentage over the last 15 seasons. They're 9-5 all time against FBS level schools. They've had 13 draft picks in the last 10 NFL drafts. So it's very interesting to see how they reshuffle this whole Mountain West with the scheduling. Gloria's statement was, "We are thrilled to welcome North Dakota State football program to the Mountain West. The Bison bring a championship mindset and a bold vision for growth that aligns with unwavering commitment to the excellence of the Mountain West. Their dedication to elevating, sorry, I don't know why I said elevating the student athlete experience on the field, in the classroom, and throughout the community will energize the Mountain West and help propel our football program to new heights nationwide." She's not wrong. With the new Mountain West deal and the more exposure they're getting, with CBS still being a part, with Fox still being a part, with the CW being added, and the Mountain West app, being transitioning into like a more of a actual media platform with production. People are going to watch the Mountain West, especially year 1 for North Dakota State, because they're going to want to see what they do, how they play, who they play. Are they going to be competitive? Where do they fit? This is my opinion. I think some of those out there that are putting this as a JMU 2.0, they're going to come 11-1, 10-2, CFP ranked right off the bat. I don't think they're going to do that, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as what Sam Houston has been. Sam Houston elevated after they won their FCS championship, I think back in 2020 or 2021. They went to Division 1. They've really struggled with the transition to Division 1, or I'm sorry, to FBS. So I think, they'll slot somewhere in there between 7-5, 8-4 that first year. They're going to be ultra competitive, I think. One thing that people don't realize is FCS only has typically between 65 to 70 scholarships. With the new Division 1 rule, each roster can carry 105. So now you got to add 30 more players. What players are going to want to go there? You're kind of late in the portal process for that. What does their NIL look like? Is there going to be an exception to try to recruit and get commits to build the program? Where are these media people going to preseason rank them? They'll probably be, my guess, right in the middle. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, they're a Research 1 school, so it's another great academic school for the Mountain West as well. I kind of wish they came in all sports. Their basketball program is actually leading the Summit League, and so is their women's basketball program. So those two would have been great additions as well. The one kicker, though, is people don't understand that is they will play in FBS next year. It's a 2-year transition process. So the Bison will not be eligible for the Mountain West Championship or postseason play, including a CFP or a bowl game, until 2028. However, they could be selected to a bowl game if there's not enough bowl-eligible teams in the country. So that kind of plays into it a little bit. That's kind of the North Dakota State talk. I think it's a great addition. A lot of outlets out there like SP Plus, they would have rated right behind UNLV and number 2 in the Mountain West last year, and that includes the other bigger schools the other G6 schools that affected out. So it's very interesting. I think, this something that North Dakota State's been trying to do for a long time. I want to go see a game at the Fargo Dome. I'd be very excited to go see a game at the Fargo Dome. It only holds 17,000, so I'm sure that football environment is absolutely crazy. There's only direct flights to Fargo is only $60-$70. So, it'd be great to go check those out. And it's just another great environment to add to the Mountain West. And by the way, to that CF college sports page that said that the Mountain West needed a dome, hate to break it to you. I know one of those new burner pages, they're popping up left and right all the time, but they had a pretty funny response. They were like, it's the drunk one. I don't know, drunk guy or high on UNLV. I don't know, whatever it is. It's pretty funny. His ChatGPT pictures are really funny. Anyway, he said, "Joke's on you" or something like that. UNLV already plays in the dome, which people forget about Allegiant. I know it's hard to forget, but it's kind of funny at the same time. I think, there's a lot of big things happening this week as well. UNLV baseball, they open up their season on the 13th. UNLV basketball plays tomorrow. I will do a preview of that tomorrow morning. We'll see if Pastner speaks today. I haven't gotten any emails about him speaking, so I planned on going. I'll let Tyler Bischoff not be the only guy there this time. Typically, for those who wonder, I have credential for football, men's basketball, women's basketball. I mainly cover football and men's basketball. My women's coverage, you guys don't really like, and I don't get a lot of reads on, so kind of have tapered off a little bit from there. Respect and love Lindy. But yeah, that's why I haven't really been to those games. But I go to every basketball game. I've missed 3 this year. The last one, I missed Grand Canyon. I missed all this stuff this week. I was on a work project in Wisconsin. And then the other 2 games I missed were because my wife had a baby, so had our daughter. So there's nothing I can really do about that one. But yeah, if you guys know, I try to cover everything. I do my best. It's just me. So love me, hate me, whatever it may be. I'm still going to be around. I'm still going to be here. I'm going to try to do my interviews again like I did last time. But we'll see. Thank you for tuning in today. Don't forget, for all your UNLV coverage, please subscribe to the Scarlet Standard on my website. Join our forums. They haven't gotten a lot of activity yet, but please join the forums. Join the conversation. If you guys are already subscribed to me and get my emails, you guys already have an account. I transitioned them over. Join the conversation. Let's build this like RebelNet was. Let's have a foundation of that's not Twitter that you guys can talk about UNLV. And I would love to host that for you guys. Also, subscribe to my YouTube, my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all social media. And our great sponsor, Vegas Varsity. Vegas Varsity actually put out a great graphic the other day of Josh Pastner. I sent it to Pastner. I said, Vegas Varsity built this for you. It should be on an NIL t-shirt deal. And he goes, we need to win for that to happen. So he already knows. The expectation's already there. But yeah, subscribe, like, follow, sign my Hey Red petition, voice your opinion, push that out there, and go Rebels. And like I said, thank you for tuning in.